I think the legal world and court cases are fascinating. That's why you see so many television shows about them. Aaron Whalley joins us from the Whaley Law Firm once again, and he's here to educate us a little bit, and we're going to talk about wrongful death cases. Aaron, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
I appreciate you coming in and giving us a little bit of education. You're a good resource. Now, so my basic understanding of a wrongful death case is when one party causes the death of another party. That's basically it?
I mean, that's an oversimplification, but,
oh, yeah.
But yeah. So, and wrongful death cases are a little different in a couple of other ways that kind of traps for the unwary is what I like to call them. If you have an attorney who's not experienced in dealing with these type cases, you can kind of fall by the wayside. And if you don't do it right, you might be missing out on a big claim potentially. So obviously, wrongful death case or claim somebody's died, and it's because of somebody else's fault or somebody else's negligence. The first question that gets presented to me is who files the claim? Because obviously it's not the dead person, because well, they're dead. Okay, that's the oversimplification. So what it is, it's their estate. So if you've ever had a family member die, unfortunately, but it's under normal causes, you go to district court, you open up probate, and you open up an estate for them so that you can divvy up the assets, pay debts, things like that. Very simple things. Well, whoever opens up that estate then becomes the representative of the estate, whether that's because of the will nominates someone, like an executor or an executrix, or if they don't have a will, we go by what's called the intestate statute, and they become the administrator or the administratrix. That person then controls the lawsuit, and any funds that they get from the lawsuit goes into the estate, and that becomes an asset of the estate. We also have what's called a wrongful death statute, okay? And so that's actually a separate claim, and that's actually very important to pursue because any damages or any award you get pursuant to the statute passes outside of probate. So it doesn't go into the pool of money that the estate has, and the good thing about that is then it's not subject to estate tax, and it doesn't get offset by any bills or any claims that are against the estate. That just goes directly to the heirs of whoever it is who died. So that's very important. The next thing you have to understand is that statute, though, only covers economic damages. So if you have a young person and they have had an unfortunate accident and they died, obviously they have lost out on their entire life of earnings. And that can be a substantial sum of money, and that goes through the estate statute. But pain and suffering doesn't go through that, and so you have to pursue that through a normal claim through a lawsuit, okay? We don't have a damage for dying. So we talked earlier, several weeks ago, we talked about what are the elements of damages. So it's pain and suffering and economic damages, future and past and medical bills and all these things.
It's totally different.
Totally different for dying because, well, dying isn't one of them. I can't list dying, put a value on this person's life. We don't do that. That's actually not an element. So the way that we get that communicated to a jury and get a jury to put money on that is through pain and suffering. Well, if you've died, not everybody gets pain and suffering. And you might think, well, why the heck not?
Yeah.
And that's because sometimes some people die instantly. And you have to be able to prove what's called conscious pain and suffering in order to unlock that bit of a damage.
Wow.
And
it sounds so cold,
It is. It's actually really heartless because if let's say you're an older person and you have, you're on Social Security. Well, Social Security is not an economic damage that we can collect on. So you don't have economic damage. The only damage we can get is pain and suffering. I actually had a very interesting case with a gentleman who was 90 years old, lived by himself. He was in great shape, and he died at a fire. This was a very fascinating case in a lot of ways because he lived on the second floor of his house, and he had some water damage on the first floor, so we hired a contractor to come in and fix his floor. Well, the stain and the chemicals that they put on the floor, they had all these rags, and they put the rags inside of plastic bags, sealed them up, and they put them underneath the stairs in a closet. Well, very big letters on the cans of these things is don't do that. They can spontaneously combust, and that's exactly what happened. So this guy's house burns down. It's because of the contractor's mistake and negligence, so we had a very large claim. And they actually found the client, the fire department did, laying down unconscious at the top of the stairs with severe, burns over 50% of his body. But he was unconscious.
There's pain and suffering there, I'm sure.
Well, he's unconscious. So we had to show
he's not
that
feeling
he doesn't feel pain and suffering. He's unconscious. We actually had to show conscious pain and suffering. So we found in the medical records a point in time when a nurse was talking to the next of kin and discussing with them pulling the plug, and she notes that after they had that conversation that he turned his head, he shook his head. Now, we don't know if it was because he was responding or if that was some kind of involuntary reaction, but kind of defense counsel and us, we all agreed that a jury will buy that he was responding to that. And if he's responding to that, that means he's conscious. That means he has conscious pain and suffering. That kind of unlocked that damage, and now we can pursue the claim. Another interesting thing that we learned in that case is that they find people in fires. If you're on the second floor, they usually find you in one of two spaces. They usually find you at the top of the stairs unconscious or at the bottom of the stairs unconscious.
Trying to exit.
Yep. What happens is we all know if we've been in a fire to get low, to get down, and we crawl, we stay underneath that hot, awful smoke. And we have this reaction when we get to the stairs, we're like, I got to run down the stairs. And so we stand up to run down the stairs. But as soon as you stand up, your lungs hit that superhotted air, and you immediately pass out. So you immediately pass out and fall down either at the top of the stairs or you fall all the way down.
Wow.
So God forbid you're ever in a fire, stay low.
That was a fascinating case. And I'm curious, for those out there who maybe had a reason to perhaps pursue something legally, wrongful death case. What's the statute of limitations? They're listening to you now, Aaron.
So the statute of limitations is also a little different on a wrongful death case. So the statute is whatever type of accident is the underlying. Okay, so if it's a car accident, it's 2 years. If it's a slip and fall or some other kind of a negligence like that, like a medical malpractice, it's 1 year. But then it gets extended from when the date of you opening probate. So when you open and create the estate, the statute is either 1 or 2 years or whatever the statute of limitations is from that date. So you have to have the estate opened within the statute of limitations, and then you kind of get an extra time after that.
Wow, you're an interesting, a great resource. Let's talk a little bit about what would this involve. Obviously, car accidents.
Right.
A business, maybe you have a job where it's physical and something happens and the business was negligent. What about medical? I would think medical would be hard to prove. If a doctor malpractice, is that a whole different bag of?
You know, it is. And in fact, you kind of glossed over it at something pretty interesting there. Medical, yes, medical malpractice cases, and I do handle those. Those are very difficult cases. I screen lots of medical malpractice cases, and everybody thinks that if any kind of a bad outcome, people think they have a case, and a lot of times they just don't. They're very difficult, very time-consuming. But yes, I've had clients before, they miss something, you get an embolism of some sort and you die, various things, and that can certainly lead to those claims. But you mentioned an employment claim. If you die on the job, actually you don't typically have a claim then if it's the fault of your employer, because our workers' comp statute kind of takes that away from you, and you have a claim through workers' comp, and you can make that through them, and you actually get a payout through them, but you don't have a claim against your employer except under some very limited circumstances.
I recommend you give him a call today. Hopefully you don't have to deal with a wrongful death case, but if you do, or if there's an injury involved, Aaron Whaley's the man to call, the Whaley Law Firm.